Okay, so I'm a ripping. Ground in New Jersey, or at least in this part of New Jersey, is rather shallow ground with a bunch of shale in it. So you kind of got to be careful as to how deep you go. And compaction is a bigger problem than what most guys in this area would agree to. And I know there's a few fellas that have tried this operation that I'm doing right now and stopped because they claimed it made it too wet in the fall. Well, that is a concern of mine, but I have a four-wheel drive combine, and I'm not really too concerned because I chisel plow and disc and do that anyway. This particular operation, I am not going to be chisel plowing anymore. There's no need for it because I'm ripping, which is fall ripping is what I'm really after, and that is to break up the compaction, heave it up, allow the water to go in, freeze, thaw, break up the upper compaction and the lower compaction through the natural process of the freezing and the thawing. This tractor is handling this thing like there's nothing behind it. I have to back that up now. And why do I do it that way? I'll tell you why. Because I don't want to have to go up and down the hills here. The headlands, or the end rows as I call them, headlands is when you plow. I guess that would be the headlands. I'm not really too concerned with at this moment. For the simple reason, I'll do them in the end and it'll be fine. So, and I like to have the differential lock-in. I do not have duals. I know there's a lot of folks out there that were saying, oh, you're going to need duals, and you're going to need this, and you're going to need that, and you're going to need the other thing. This tractor weighs 32,000 pounds. I hung another 1,460 pounds off the front, or so, 1,430, 40, 1,450 pounds off the front of this thing. That makes a big difference, obviously, because honestly, 60% of your pull comes from the front wheels. I will take this thing out and stick it to the bottom of this ripper so y'all can see what it's doing. You will go through areas where I'm riding on shale, like right now, and you will go through areas where the topsoil is rather deep. Where the topsoil is rather deep is where the compaction is really evident because it heaves the soil and drops it. Where it's the where there's a lot of shale underneath, it's like a vibra shank, and it's actually shattering the soil like a chisel plow would. But you can see it back there, just pulling and tearing and doing its thing. I'm running somewheres around 14, 15 inches where I should be. So, yeah. And when it comes up, it just settles back down where it belongs, and life is good. Life is always good for me. I make my life good. My plans for farming in this coming uncertain times are to actually go into heavier grain production and leave some of the hay ground. Well, I'm not going to say I'm leaving hay ground behind. Excuse me while I make my turn. I'm not leaving my hay ground behind. The reason I'm not leaving my hay ground behind is because I'm always picking up ground. I will probably be with the same acres of hay as I had in past years, but I'm picking up more ground to do grain on. For the simple reason, I just think it's a good move. It's better ground, and yeah, you hear the tractor change? She's just idling there at 1,640, 1,650. It's a 2,200 horsepower or 2,200 RPM engine. It's pulling harder now because I've picked up a rock. And what you do when you pick up a rock, let's just pick it up a little bit. Pull ahead a little bit. And drop it down. You can feel it, you can hear it though. So the engine will speed up to my 4.5 mile an hour, and then the engine will slow and the transmission will take up the difference, because honestly, this is child's play for this tractor. This tractor is 374 horsepower. I had a dynoed when I bought it, and it's 374. I had the sheets. I think I showed them online at one time, but yeah, that's it, baby. And that is what it looks like. So I'm gonna shut up, and I'm actually gonna stick the camera on the back there. Okay, so before I go ahead and stick this thing on, you can feel, watch, see that? In the center, it doesn't do it so much, but here, it's just like really soft. So what that has done is it has cut slots into the ground to allow the moisture to go down, all right? And because it's soft and it's open, the water will go down there. Yes, it's going to be muddy, kind of muddy, you know, in the spring maybe if I come in here too early. But what will happen is the water will go down in there, and it will also allow the frost to go deeper and continue to fracture and break up the ground, which is exactly what I want. It really is exactly what I want. So this is a root mass from the chickweed. See? It's kind of nice and soft under here, but you can get into like right here where there is no root mass, and you can see that hardened soil, and that's what we're trying to destroy. Is that roots can't get down through there. This is heavy clay soil. Heavy clay soil. This came up from below, I believe. Yep, and it is top 6 or 8 inches of compaction. Now there are some neighbors that do strictly no-till farming, and they continue to compact the top 6 to 8 inches of their soil, making it very difficult for the roots to get down in there. They haven't tilled in many, many years, and I mean many, many years. So you get down here to the headlands, or the end rows, as I say, is what they are, and you start to come in contact with where you went over it a lot of times with your combine, and that is your compaction that you're not going to be able to do away with in the no-till farming practices. Just comes up chunks. This right here isn't really that compacted. Up at the top there's a lot more compaction. Towards the center of the field there's a lot more compaction, but I'm going to stick this sucker on here, and I'm going to point it down so that you can see the lifting and dropping action of the points and the compaction that is so great down below that it actually raises everything in between there and drops it back down again. And in places it will do that, and other places it won't do that. So it's all in the level of compaction throughout the whole field are different. So we'll see. Well, get you. Okay, so I'm back outside the tractor, obviously. I'm going to show you some erosion that is due to surface compaction and the lack of penetration for the water to go into the ground, which will also be alleviated by will somewhat be alleviated by this ripper. The water can't penetrate this soil when it's compacted to the point that it was compacted to, and it basically makes a sluice. And you can see where the chisel plow went. See? 1, 2, 3, 4. And that water, as it congregates down from up above, it will find that spot where the chisel plow went, and it will just erode that away, because deep down in here there's too much compaction and it won't allow it to penetrate, so it becomes a sluice. You also see that the corn is planted there as well, and the root mass has held it in place also. I'm sure there's a few people that are going to point that out. Yeah, I am not going to rip these ends until spring. I'm just not going to do it. If I do rip them, I am actually ripping close to that so that the water that does come down can actually go down into the slots that I have ripped. And you can see the heave, and I hope you can see it in the video as well. You can see how it's just heaving the whole thing. It's just heaving that stuff right up out of the ground and doing its job. So what we're doing is water storage, if you want to put it that way. Water storage, erosion control, compaction elimination. There are just so many benefits to this. And I'm sure in the fall, when I'm harvesting my crop, if I have a good crop, because we all run on ifs here in the agricultural world. If I only did this, or if I only did that, or if I only did the other thing, I would have a better crop. Well, if I have a good crop, I will probably be showing you the downfalls, or not the downfalls so much, but the cons of ripping if we have a wet fall. I'd really hate to have a wet fall, but I'm going to plant varieties that allow me to get it off early enough, like the 100-day varieties that I am not going to plant this year, but I'm going to change them out for something else. And we're at that point here where it's just, this spot is traditionally wet. Anyways, I'm just going to shut up and get on with my business here because it's wet here.